From Bossier City, Louisiana, this is The Grouch and the Brainstorm. Welcome back to all our loyal listeners and maybe even a couple of new ones we hope to make loyal. I'm Mike, and I am an alcoholic, and you are listening to The Grouch and the Brainstorm, a podcast about recovery. And tonight with me, I have Ben from the Koala Club. Say hi, Ben.
What's up?
I have Matt.
Hey.
My usual Matt. I have Travis.
Howdy.
I have Jen.
Hey, guys.
And sitting out tonight will be Jill. She's a little under the weather, so wish her well. Hope everybody out there is doing great. Glad to have you back. Hopefully this is going to be an exciting episode. These episodes are unscripted. There's absolutely nothing that we talk about in advance except for the topic, and we kind of try to roll with it and make it as raw, uncut as we possibly can. So don't forget about the call-in line and the email. If you got suggestions, please reach out to us. We'll be glad to discuss any topic that you deliver to us as long as we don't have a pre-planned topic, and I'll give that information at the end of the podcast. So tonight we will be talking about sobriety and recovery. And a lot of times we hear in a meeting, I've been sober for X amount of time, and I've been this, that, and the other. You know, I have 5 years sober, I have 5 years clean, or whatever it is. And then sometimes we hear some people say, you know, I've been in recovery for 5 or 6 years. And, you know, and I think maybe me anyway, in the back of my mind, I kind of relate the two as being one. And a lot of people may. I don't know how that works for everybody else. I know how it is for me. But I was sitting in a meeting about, 5 or 6 years ago down in New Orleans, and there was a lady there, and she just made a comment during the meeting that said, you know, I found out the hard way that there's a difference between sobriety and recovery. And I started thinking, there really is a difference between sobriety and recovery. Sobriety sucked. I really didn't like being sober. You know, being in recovery is pretty cool. I think it's, you know, how a normal person might live if they didn't have a drinking or an addiction. And I got to listening more and more in meetings and realizing what the difference, you know, for me, you know, because I've been sober many times. I've had a lot of sobriety dates, but they usually didn't last over, 12, 24 hours. And some of them lasted up to 90 days. And while I was in that 90-day period, and it talks about in our big book, you know, the restlessness, the irritable, the discontented, you know. Now, does that mean if I get that way during recovery that I'm not in recovery? Maybe I'm not in recovery mode. Maybe I need a reset, you know. I don't know. But that's what we're going to talk about tonight. And, Ben, what do you think about the difference between sobriety and recovery?
Well, when I think about it, it's like the first 5 months of my getting sober. I went to 1 or 2 meetings, and I went back to my house, and I sat in my pool of sadness, depression, all the shit that I didn't really want to face or talk to about any of it to anybody. And then some people finally had enough of my attitude, and I lost my job and I lost my house. And I didn't know where I was going to go next. Wasn't quite sure. I can't remember who called first, but wound up talking to Matt on the phone and seeing if he had a job that I could possibly do. But mainly, I think we talked about getting back into the rooms of AA and how I'll describe it. So being sober, you can not be using, you can be dry, but you can still be the same old asshole that you were before. You can just be doing the same dumb shit and not doing anything about it. But being in recovery would be more like working the steps and actually doing something, having a program, having people and stuff to rely on when you get into those situations where you're not like 100% walking the line of being a great AA. You're not a picture perfect example, but you've got a program, you've got shit to fall back on too. So that's how I see it.
Did you want to drink during those periods?
No, because, well, I mean, I had the ideas, but when it came up, it was just like, no, I'm going to beat this shit for, like, I mean, I've had dry spells before, but this is the first time that I've actually didn't want to go back out. When I had dry spells before, it's just like I was trying to make a point, trying to prove a point to people that I can just stop the shit whenever I wanted to. But at this time, it was like, I'm not going to drink ever again because the consequences I keep facing are never going to end. And if they do, or if I do drink again, they're just going to get worse. I maybe just wind up dead somewhere or kill somebody. But when the idea of drinking occurred before I'd started practicing the program again, it's just I was trying to brute force it, rely on my willpower and everything. And like Joe relates to when he talks about willpower, it's like trying to hold back diarrhea. It's going to give way sometimes. So
yeah, so I can see that. And then for me anyway, you know, having all the problems of life piling up and not being able to drink and not being able to drink because I don't want to drink because of the problems of life. You see where you're kind of getting into the...
Yeah, and there's no other available option to deal with them, you know?
Right.
Like, I just quit the one option I had.
Yeah.
So,
so then...
I thought this one out, you know?
For me, my alcoholism, the ism part, just manifested in other ways. So I was still looking externally to try to change the way that I felt. And for sobriety, I'm doing air quotes here. The big book says, have you a sufficient solution? And I did not have a sufficient solution. I was still running the show. I didn't have a program of action, and I was white knuckling life. And this is a really, really important topic to me because I think oftentimes people confuse, okay, I'm going to AA, I'm not drinking. So obviously I'm doing the AA program. And the program of action is actually written in that 164 pages. And it hasn't changed since it was written. And that is the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And you get to the solution via the 12 steps. When I'm not doing that, I'm not in recovery, I'm not drinking, and I totally relate to what Ben said. I was still the same asshole, I just wasn't drinking. So I didn't change any part of my reality or my perception of the way I looked at the world and my interaction with other humans in the world. I was still selfish and self-centered. That we think is the root of our problems. And so in 9 months of AA, not drinking, going to meetings every day, but not doing anything about the solution, pretty much bottomed out. I hit rock bottom in AA because I was drier than the Sahara Desert. Somebody could have lit a match in Texas and it would have blown up over
So
here.
I'm going to ask both of y'all this question. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting. Were you happy? And I kind of know the answer to that, but I mean, that 5 months for you, Ben, and the 9 for you, I'm sure when you first came in, you were like, okay, I see this is happening, but then it starts to...
There were pink cloud moments, right? I'm not drinking, so... And you do hear some amazing things in the room, some inspiring things, and but then you start to look around, or at least I started to look around, and I'm like, wait a minute, all these people are happy. Their life seems so put together. What the hell am I not doing? Oh, but you know, again, we say it often. It takes what it takes, and so that was me bottoming out almost a year into the program. That was what took it.
And you hadn't worked steps or anything.
Well, I was right. I was what we call half measuring or half assing them.
Gotcha.
Checking boxes. I didn't have a clue what really I was doing, and not like I do now. But that bottoming out was what it took to get me to the point of surrender, where it was like, okay, I'm done with myself. I had to get to the end of myself. And just not drinking didn't get me to the end of myself for a minute. But so I know today that I truly have the ism. Even if I'm not drinking, I have to have some, like today, like today, I have to have something outside of myself to keep me from myself or relieving me from the bondage of self, which I'm never going to be fully relieved of. But
Yeah, 5 years in, I still think alcoholically on a regular basis.
Oh,
And I
right,
go,
yeah,
you freaking alcoholic. What are you doing?
You know, but
Probably,
Travis?
probably in 27 years sober and still out.
Oh, my
alcohol thinking.
Thanks, Travis. That makes me feel better.
what I love about recovery and being around other alcoholics is you know, for so long I used to think that I was like this just strange individual, like nobody else thought like I did.
Yeah.
Then now it's funny because like, you know, Matt and I will be like messaging back and forth all day long, just crazy, you know, little memes and jokes. And, you know, it's cool because I've had conversations with Mike about spoons and like,
Where not to put them.
Thanks for
I
clarifying.
thought you were going to bring up me and Mike spooning that one time, but
oh,
I'm not.
yeah. No,
We had
a different
to stay
conversation.
warm.
It was cold outside.
I think it was like missing utensils. Like my kids like took a fork off and it like really threw me for a loop for like, they lost one of my good forks. You know,
just
I
threw
just
it
moved
away.
into my
You
apartment.
have a good fork?
Yeah, well, I have like 8 of them. I had 8
look
of
forward
them.
to
Now I only have like 6.
I have a bunch of Mardi Gras cups. That's
Only
what
my
we drink.
best plasticware.
That's right. And the taco place, I've got a bunch of those blue
Right.
cups. It's fine china.
You know, real quick, Google actually has a definition for this. I'm going to read this. For a second.
I think I've read it before. It's
Never read it, so
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you what Google says. What is the difference between sobriety and recovery? Sobriety is simply the state of living without substance. However, recovery involves healing mentally, physically, and emotionally from not only your substance abuse, but also the causes of your substance abuse. Recovery is about hope, healing, and health.
I like that.
All right.
That's really
Sounds
good.
pretty good.
I wonder
Answered
if-
our question. Podcast over.
I wonder if we should ask ChatGPT just see what the AI has
I
to say.
can do that.
What about you, Travis? What do you think on this? While he's looking.
Well, I have to go against the grain here on this one.
Well, Travis first off, for the listener's sake, Travis got sober when he was about what, eight or 9 years old.
Right.
Yeah.
Swore off beer when he was 6.
After a long bout of, so Travis has been sober for 26 years.
Yeah, he was putting beer in his formula.
Sippy cup.
His baby formula.
27 years. Travis has 27 years in the program. So, you know, obviously, whenever you hear those kind of years, your ears perk up. You want to hear it. So go ahead, Travis.
All right. So when Jennifer was talking about that 9 months and Ben was talking about his 5 months, I think God gives us a grace period because I have yet to see somebody that walks in the door, grabs hold of this thing day one, and is like, I love being sober. Most of us, for a period of time, this shit sucks, you know, and we have to deal with the consequences of the past and the wreckage of the past. And God graces us for more or less, you know, a period of grace where we get to see those breadcrumbs that was Jennifer was talking about, the pink cloud moments, the going to meetings and being inspired by somebody else's share. And he pulls us along during that period. So we stay dry or not drinking for a period of time until for me, we start the process of recovery. And that's doing, whether you do 5 things a day or 7 things a day, you start that process, working the steps, working with a sponsor, going to meetings, reading a big book, doing some work on the steps, working with helping another alcoholic. When you start doing those things, that's the process of recovery for me. And then as I'm sitting here listening to y'all and I'm thinking, there's a difference between, for me, for being sober and sobriety. Sober to me is being without drink or drug or whatever. Sobriety is the byproduct of doing the recovery process. After a period of time, you know, that state of being without substance transitions into a period of serenity and peace and well-being. For me, that is true sobriety. Yeah. And I get those things through the process of recovery. Now, I can see others thinking, and, you know, that we all get to have our own way of thinking and definitions of words and whatnot. And at the end of the day, is in my book, is as long as you're doing what you need to do today to not take that next drink, all those semantics, all those word plays, you know, they will work themselves out in time. Just do what you have to do today not to take that next drink. That is job number one. That is the most important thing in my life today, is to do whatever it is today to not take that next drink. And it may look different than yesterday, a year ago, 10 years ago, whatever the case may be. It's whatever it takes to ensure against that next drink, no matter what it is.
So another book I read tells me to be sober-minded.
Yeah.
And so I can tell when I'm thinking alcoholically or I'm sober-minded. And I'm never going to be fully recovered from myself. But sober for me is just I'm not using.
Yeah. You know, here's a good example of that. Just for me, that just happened. We were all at a meeting together, and we had a birthday. A lady had 2 years, and as she got up there to start the meeting, she was crying, and it was like she said, it was tears of joy. But if you just sat way in the back and you didn't listen to what people were saying, all you could hear was laughter. The whole meeting, everybody laughing. And I went, I never would have pictured that when they told me in rehab, you're going to go to AA meetings. And I went, oh my God. Like I'd maybe seen one on a movie and it was terrible, you know, like The Sopranos. That dude killed his sponsor in The Sopranos. I don't know if you ever saw that, but yeah, their program was a little different on that show. But yeah, he threw him out a window.
Survival of the fittest.
Guess he didn't like what he told him, huh?
Yeah, well, yeah, it was. You
I don't
need
know.
to check that out if you hadn't
There's
seen
one
it.
that I watched, and it was a bunch of, I don't even remember what it was called. But it was like literally they would sit in a room, and they smoked in this room, and it was like, I don't know. But they would just bitch about all they wanted to do was drink.
And I thought that's what this would be, you know, and I never thought that you see these people in here and everybody's just pulling for each other. And that just shows you, you know, not that everybody's there, but as a group, we're all moving in that direction. And you can genuinely tell people care about that person. They're happy for them. And they genuinely it was genuine laughter. It's not the little golf clap, you know, oh, that was funny. No, people were just laughing the whole meeting. And I was like, that's why I'm a part of this, you know. Danielle. Shout out to Miss Danielle.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe I missed that.
Yeah, 2 years.
Yeah, you got to make it up to her now.
And you know,
do.
for entertainment purposes, I would imagine that if they showed the actual room of AA where everybody in the room was just extremely happy and it's just a regular old meeting and this is what we do every day, it's probably not going to make whatever drama that character who is in that meeting is going through quite as entertaining, you know.
Yep.
So I can see where that would affect, you know. I watched the episode of House the other night. And I love that show. Yeah. And I watched it, and he was in a rehab, and he was quoting the steps. He was going, you know, step this, step that, and everybody else was looking at him like he had something wrong with him. And of course, the guy who was running the meeting, I guess at this particular rehab, just all smiles, you know, just completely smiling the whole time. Even when there would be a smart ass remark or something, he would just keep smiling, you know. And I get it. We do have a lot of lividity, but there's not a lot of fake lividity in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's real, and there are moments that are happy and moments that are sad and moments where everybody shuts up for someone share. You could hear a pin drop. I mean, when the air conditioner goes off or comes on, you know it whenever someone is sharing and it's coming from their heart and you can feel the pain coming off, you know. Yeah. And when someone's celebrating like tonight, you know, it gets a little rowdy, it gets a little loud.
Yeah.
I think I heard one of our members shush once during the meeting.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Me this time.
yeah, it wasn't Travis this time. So,
But I always think of 28 Days with Sandra Bullock, and they keep saying like keep coming back
They
or
let them,
like all the AA
wonder.
one-liners, and she's like, "Can I get that shit stitched on a pillow?" And like that's how I felt. And then I ended up being the one that puts the liners on the shirts or whatever. You
I
know?
couldn't have went to that rehab, dude. They let them wander around in the woods and hang out. I'd have ran through them woods and been gone, man. They're out there exercising. There ain't no way that ours was like state prison. You know, they just shot us if we tried to climb the fence.
Armed guards at the gate.
Yes.
well, and there goes again back to sobriety versus recovery. You know, or when you're in there, you're just dry. You know, and to be honest with you, there were several times I got out straight to the liquor store. You know, I got my days in. I got to go get something to drink. You know,
My peer support guy people would come in there in rehab. I was in there in the longer term thing, but a lot of people would do the 30 days. And so I heard it a lot. But people would come in and they've been there 3 days, right? And they'd go, I am a recovering whatever. And he would just shut them down. And he would go, you're not in recovery. You're sitting in rehab. You're in discovery. That's all you're in here. When you get out there, and I just love that. I was like, yeah. He's like, don't ever say you're in recovery in here. You'll start recovery when you get out. And I was like,
That's why I love getting to go to CADA.
Yeah.
When we bring the meetings in there, because I don't know that it's an AA based program, but whatever they're doing, it works, or, but, and when we go in there, we stress the whole sobriety versus recovery, and, tell them to do the 5 things
and that's why we always tie the aftercare stuff in, because that's where your recovery is going to start. You got to get around, and like we just beat them over the head with it. Please go get out, go straight to a meeting. They're like, well, I'm going to go visit my mom for a week, and then I'm going to, and it's like, no, like leave here, go to a meeting, sit there till it starts.
I usually say, like, do not pass go, do not collect $200, don't go by the dope man's house, don't go by Thrifty, go straight to a meeting, find a meeting.
Yep. It's
I heard that a lot. Every time I got out, they were like, you need to go to a meeting. Like, I just spent like every day going to 3. I'm good. Y'all have a good one, But then again, there's no recovery. There's actually no real relief, from the, it's almost like the whole time I was in rehab, I felt like everything that I was in charge of was just piling up on me, so that when I could get out, I could go take care of it, until ultimately there was nothing left to take care of. It was all just gone,
Just kind of hope it blows over while you're in rehab, kind of.
No, there was nothing left. I mean, I think my last trip, back in June of 2011, my last trip over to the bed and breakfast I had, when I got home, there were signed divorce papers, from the judge in my mailbox, which kind of put the end to that particular one thing I was worried about, and I figured it would just open up 15 million more. But for some reason, I was just so beat down this particular time. I was just like, it doesn't matter. None of this. I'm dying. I'm dying. Like if I live with nothing, it's better than dying with everything. And that was the state of mind I had to have. Even though I wasn't in recovery, I believe at that time, I never actually thought I'd take step 9. I was thinking of ways I could get out of taking step 9, even at that point, because they cover the steps and how it works when you're in rehab. So,
yeah, I didn't. I realized I did them reading them on the wall. I've told y'all that, and I looked. I was like, step 4 is like character defects. I'm like, that's easy, dude. I have nothing. Like, I'm literally perfect. All these people have put me in this place.
Well, I mean, you did all your steps in rehab in 30
I did them
minutes
in my head
you read them,
on the
right?
wall. Yeah. Like during lunch, dude. Who does them that fast?
Yeah.
And then I explained that to
your
Bobby.
Your sponsor must have really thought that was a great deal.
He took that in stride. I mean, I got out. I was like, dude, I'm going to be the easiest one you ever had, dude. I've already done everything. I'm good.
It's like the old saying, if you work them off the wall, you get off the wall results.
Yes, and I did. I did
like that.
Did get off the wall results. Forget that I had to move to an entire different state when I got out of rehab. My life was perfect. So, Bobby said, do you have the paperwork on those 12 steps that you did? And I went, oh, no, man. Did them in my head, dude. Yeah. And everybody was like, we're going to start over.
That's great that you brought that, like step 9 or whatever up. And I was watching a podcast last night, and the guy that played Jesus in The Passion of the Christ, they're coming out with this new movie, and somebody was interviewing him, and he was kind of giving a little bit of rundown of his life story. And, it got to a point where he had to talk about a sticky situation, and he didn't want to bring it up because he'd already forgiven. And the guy turned around and asked him, he was like, how do you forgive? And I'm like, oh, yeah, normal people out there just don't have, the program, it's just kind of embedded in there. But he went on to bring up scripture, but then he talked about praying for somebody. And I'm they tell us to do that.
So this is a true story, and Ben knows him, and he's a handful. But the guy worked for the owner of the company. He had a guy screw him over on about $250,000 worth of contracts.
I thought you were going to say condoms.
No. That's a
Same
lot.
result. Same result. But
Well, you could just never mind.
Either way, it's $250,000, man. No matter how you look at it.
Yeah.
No matter how you spend it.
So he's been irritated. Well, that's how I wound up with the job I have because he fired this guy. It was a big deal. Well, this has been 2 years ago that this guy did this, and every day he's railing on the same deal, you know. And I finally told him, I was like, man, you know what I would do? I was like, you got to let it go, man. Like, it's over. You know, it's over. You're just hurting yourself. And he doesn't know all this stuff's AA stuff, but it's what Bobby does to me. And then kind of in a gentle way, I'm like, dude, you got to let it go. Like, this is eating you up. Mm-hmm. And I said, look, man, put a rock in your pocket. Pray for that dude. Have you prayed for the guy? And he's looking at me like, no, I would like to murder him, you know? And I'm like, just give it 2 weeks, pray for him or gripe about it, whatever you want to do, but give it 2 weeks, throw the rock away, just drop the rock and let it go. Let's move on. And so he kind of in his own mind, I think he I don't think he actually got the rock, but he kept telling me, you know what, I got to let that go. He'd tell me, and I'm like, yeah, man. And so now he'll kind of kick back into it every once in a while. I'm like, dude, drop the rock, bro. And he immediately, you know, and it's so funny to see people that have no clue about any of the program, but they're doing stuff, you know, and I'm always talking to them about acceptance. And guys we work with, I'm like, you got to accept that they're doing it. And now he's in there telling them, look, we got to practice acceptance, you know, and it's just, I get to laughing. But anyway. I
had a coworker one time reach out to me about something. I don't remember. It was some situation with another coworker. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not getting in the middle of that, which, you know, that's a change in itself because used to I'd be all up in the middle of it, you know. But I started sprinkling just AA program back to her, and you would have thought that she would have thought I was like the Dalai Lama or some philosophical, like, oh my gosh, that's so. I'm like, yeah, it's simple.
You know, but even I talk about the rock thing, and this is how recovery has gone. And Bobby's always, you know, do you have a resentment? You know, we need to talk about it. And then I do. I have to pray for that person. I mean, I kind of snide about it, and he's like, don't be snide, you know, but he knows I mean well, and it works for me. And it's something I have to do. And even now he'll say, you know, if there's a situation, he'll go, do I need to get you a rock, or is it that bad? And these last 30 days at work, 3 weeks or so, have been rough. And I've had moments where it was like, I'm at my level here. This is my level. But this time I stopped and just prayed for the guy. I didn't get myself resentful. Was I frustrated? Yes. Did I act like I normally would have? No. And then I discussed it with Bobby Sunday, I think. We ate lunch. And he goes, do you need a rock? And I said, no. You know what? Because I actually, from the get-go, just started praying for the guy and the situation, and nothing to do with me or helping me, but just like giving some clarity and some peace to the situation where we could work it out. And we were able to do that within a few days. And it just, to me, talking about recovery and sobriety, I promise you this guy would not have handled that way. You know,
that's what I love about the program. And you lather, rinse, repeat. You know, you keep doing the program day after day. And in the beginning, it's awkward and unusual, and it's new. And after a period of time, all those things just start kicking in, and you start praying for somebody before you have to go to your sponsor and say, what do I do about this situation?
And you know, people are dealing with stuff. And when I pray for them, God sits there and goes, hey man, you don't like the way this person's acting. Wonder why they're acting that way. Maybe something's going on you don't know about. Maybe they're having a hard time and they don't know how to express it. And it calms me down, you know, and I go, okay, I'm not looking at the whole picture. Maybe I'm not seeing it. And not, like I said, not that I handle it perfect every time, but man, it puts a lot of that stuff in check, you know?
Yeah, I just got the opportunity to do lead step study, and we just did step 4, and well, half of it. We'll do the other half.
That's a big step.
Yeah, and we did the resentment and fears part, but I call those like the evil Bobbsey twins, because is it the chicken or the egg that comes first? But they all usually go hand in hand. I don't know if it's I get a fear about somebody and then I get resentful, or I get resentful and then I start fearing what they're going to do to me or how they're going to revenge, or, you know, and totally forget my part in it, you know, those things. And course, when we act to control the situation, that just makes it all that much messed up. But then I talked about how, we as alcoholics, we form these unhealthy attachments on people, and then we get these fears that, something's not going to go our way. And we start suffocating that person. And then that actually is what pushes the other person away. And I've witnessed that in my own life. And I've witnessed that in some of my other friends' lives.
Well, today, I was telling Ben this earlier, but today it's been pretty rough 3 weeks work-wise. And he actually called me today in the middle of the day, and he's like, hey, man, bear with me. I'm frustrated. He told me some issues that were going on financially with the company. He was trying to get through that part of it. He had issues, and he just out of the blue, he's like, hang with me. Don't get frustrated. I know you're frustrated. I put a lot on you. He just went through the whole deal, and I was like, but I had to be patient and my ego not get so big that how dare you, that kind of crap, like and it wasn't fun going through it, but it's better now. It's in a better situation than if I would have handled it the way I would have normally handled it. So.
Yeah. Maurice gets on to me all the time because, I'll sit there and worry and fester about things. And he's like, I didn't get the opportunity to do, stuff with his career, like do it perfectly where I just gave it to God and let him do his thing. He's like, please do that this time.
Yep.
And okay, I didn't because, I had to come back to y'all and be like, yeah, it worked out just the way. And then like a few weeks later, now it's working out in a completely different way that I never thought I would have even 100 years would have imagined. But, that's all God, and that's God working in my life. And the main thing for me too is Jennifer just sober doesn't have God. Jennifer in recovery has God. Yeah. And that's the key to all of it. The God of my understanding, because that's the solution. That is the sufficient solution. And until I found that sufficient solution,
it's just realizing, I think, Travis, like, we're not God. Right. I mean, I have to remind myself over and over, because I was the one who did those character defects. I didn't have any on the wall. Remember?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. I think Mike says he had 3.
3? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big list.
I think he only has 3 now.
No comment. Anyway, but going back to learning how to pray for somebody, I was going to share this. I went to my original sponsor and had a resentment out of somebody that was so big I can't remember what it is now. He says, "Well, have you prayed for him?" I said, "No." He says, "Well, pray for him every day." I said, "Okay." So I start praying for this person, and some time goes by, and I go back to my sponsor. He's like, "Well, how's that resentment?" I'm still pissed at him. He's like, He's like, "Well, are you praying every day?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's not working." He's like, "Well, what are you praying for?" I said, "Well, I'm asking God to remove them off the face of the earth before I do." And he's like, no, that's not the way this works.
That's the alcoholic mind prayer.
and he goes, you ask God to bless them with all the blessings you would want for yourself. All the blessings God would want for that person. Well, I said, well, how long do I have to do it? That's a big order. I mean, how long do I have to do this? He says, until you mean it. I was like, that might be a while. He goes, I know. Yeah. Just do it.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. One time my second sponsor, Becky, told me, I was struggling with my ex-husband, right? And she's like, why don't you just pray that he get what God would give him in the beginning, because that was better than what I was coming up with.
Yeah.
And, over time, because of this program, we have developed a relationship where we can co-parent our girls. And he's gone through he lost both of his parents, and I was able to be there for him. And we were able to repair our relationship enough where I was able to be there for him in some sort of way. And
you know what that does, though? Like, you're helping, and it's almost like carrying the message in a way, but it's when we do this program and then we have ex-husbands and wives and uncles and aunts and moms and dads, all those relationships start to repair if they're repairable, you know, for the most part. And you look back and go, oh man, this was like me just trying to help out somebody I just didn't get along with or like necessarily. And you look up and go, man, I'm like helping out my ex doing something. And it's kind of weird. It kind of happens fast. And I don't know. It's a weird program, you know?
I love it when we get to that point where we do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And I've done a lot of right things for the results of the right things or the response that I'm expecting for doing the right thing.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
When we can do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, regardless of the results or anything else.
No expectation.
Exactly, no expectation.
None.
Yeah,
I get it.
I'm working with a guy right now, and he's got his marriage is on the rocks. And I'm like, well, tell me what you're doing. He's like, I'm doing this and this and this. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, but she doesn't do this. I'm like, okay. Well, you're not doing it because you love her. You're doing it because you're expecting confirmation or you have set expectations of the way she's supposed to respond to you. I said, do it because it's the right thing to do, not because of what you get validation or get a response out of the way you're looking for. Do it because that's the way you love somebody. Do it because it's the right thing to do.
That's why I always have to question my motives
Yeah, sure.
on everything.
Sure.
And no matter how someone treats you, you know, I mean, if you think about what Travis is saying, let's just say, and I don't know who this is and nobody does, right? But let's just say that situation doesn't end well. Do I continue to do the right thing? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm the one that's got to live with me 24/7. You know, and I could have never done that in regular old sobriety. I couldn't do anything in regular old sobriety except for want to drink, you know. But in all actuality, though, you know, doing the right thing just because it's the right thing, you know. And there's just certain times in life that's just what we do, you know. And in my profession, you know, there's a lot of times where I talk to the folks that work with me, you know, and I have some crew under me, and I tell them, you know, you got to take your emotion out of it completely. Do what's right. Do what's right, you know. And there are those few occasions where we have to, you know, we have to make a judgment call. But for the most part, if you just do what's right in front of you, you're going to be perfectly okay, you know. And then not knowing all the facts also can hinder you as well. Even in that situation like Travis is talking about, you know, a lot of times, you know, I've been married a few times, and there was a lot of times where I would be upset but wouldn't know all the facts, you know, and then hoping like hell she didn't know all the facts, you know, and, you know, it's just not a good mojo going on in your head. It's just not, you know, and but sometimes you just have to do what's right in front of you. I really like that, Travis. I like that. That just, you know, it makes for a peaceful life.
Sure.
Yeah.
You don't have to remember and have angles and egos and agendas, you know. It's just like do the best you can and whatever you think's right at the time. So.
Yeah, and to piggyback off what Mike said, Miss Jessie Beebe, that's no longer with us, she used to tell us all the time, feelings are not facts. And we're overly emotional creatures, and we're reactionary creatures based off our emotions. And if we can take out the emotions out of the situation and look at the facts, then we make a sober decision.
I had one of the counselors in my rehab, if you ever get a chance to read this book, but one of the guys, we had a little, I don't know what you call them, feelings, cares, concerns class during every day.
Yeah.
And one of the guys is, well, I don't want to, blah, 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 and I don't want to stay here, and I'm tired. He's going through this stuff. So she turns around and pulls this book off of her bookcase, and it was called Don't Let the Bastards Grind You Down. Have you ever heard of that? And one of the chapters was Fuck Your Feelings. That was the name of the chapter. And she made him read the chapter out. And basically, we don't operate on our feelings. We have feelings, good or bad. They're going to change. You do what you're supposed to do and the right thing to do. And who cares what your feelings are, you know?
Yeah, because for me, what I think, what I know, and what I feel are all three different things, and they're all competing.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Ben, what about you?
Yeah, you're awful quiet over there, man. You're just taking it all in.
Dude, I'm a
talk
great
too much,
listener.
he
I
said.
just don't talk a lot. Now, the one thing I think about, because Matt's talking about our job and everything, is I I'm a mechanic by trade, and when I got hired on, I fully expected just to work on stuff, but it wound up being a lot more responsibilities than I thought. And I finally had to come to a conclusion where this is more of a managerial position. I'm taking care of more responsibilities than I expected to have, and I had to sit down and draft up a letter of resignation for probably the first time in my life, rather than just throwing my hands
You
up.
did
saying,
good on it, though. I read it.
Yeah, rather than just saying fuck it, grab my tools and walk the fuck off. And most of the time I don't even tell people when if I left a job and didn't get fired. Most of the time I got fired, but if I left a job, I would just grab my shit and leave.
Irish exit, baby.
Make an Irish exit. They don't need to know where or when I left. I just need to be gone. But
yeah, like that whole 2-week notice, and then you actually really do work at, like, I just went through that. Like, you do actually have to work out the 2 weeks and do it to the best of your ability.
Well, he didn't quite make
yeah,
the 2.
I put my 2 weeks in Friday, and my last day was yesterday. But that's because other things changed. Circumstances changes. Other things got implemented, and
It was fair.
I wasn't able to. If we were going to play the game how they wanted to play it, I wasn't going to be able to perform my 2 weeks like I expected to do. So I came to the conclusion, told the boss man, and he shook my hand, said I appreciate everything you done for me, and I hope you the best. So we just had to part ways, and
Isn't Matt your boss?
no, he's not my boss.
He's right here.
I look at
He's
him
in the room.
as I look at Matt as he's a supervisor, but technically we were almost on the same
We
level.
just be chilling.
Yeah.
That's all we do.
We took care of different responsibilities.
You found something to replace it?
I've got something temporary, but I was
Okay.
already in the works of getting another job that would just be me mechanicking on stuff, working on stuff, and that's what I love to do, busting my knuckles.
It was
and
kind of
getting
cool,
dirty,
though,
so.
because when he did resign, he told me he was going to do it. And he's like, I just want to make sure everything's okay with us. I'm like, we're fine, dude. We, do what you got to do.
Yeah.
And so the owner came in with a manila folder one day, and he's like, well, I got Ben's resignation letter. And I was like, oh, really? What? Oh, do tell. And it was very professional. I was proud of him. I was like, yeah, he didn't say kiss my ass or nothing on this thing. So.
Yeah, and I did that just out of a courtesy to Matt because I'm his friend, but also on a professional manner because I wanted to get with him and make sure I was getting everything in line so that when I left, I wasn't just leaving them.
But you know what that
empty-handed.
does? Like, so when I got out of treatment, I went to work at a place, and I had a lot of experience in my business, but they put me at the lowest job they had to give me a shot, and I'm grateful for it. But I was ready to move on. I had a lot more experience than what they had me doing, and an opportunity came up. And I didn't like the company I was working for, but they did give me a job 3 days out of rehab. Didn't know me from Adam, and I was fed up with it. I was aggravated with it. I was ready to move on. And the same thing with my sponsor. He said, you write a letter, you go in, you give them 2 weeks notice. If they tell you to work the 2 weeks, you work it like the employee of the year. Mm-hmm. And I was like, they're not going to make me stay. Wrong. We need you to work the whole 2 weeks. But you know what? When I left there, I shook the guy's hand. He looked at me. He said, man, if you ever need a job, come back. I'm always hiring. And I said, all right. That's a confidence now, even now, years later. I know I can call him and go, hey, dude, I need a job, man.
Yeah. Well, usually, when I work with my girls, my sponsees, and I had one that, she hated the job that she had gotten. And I'm like, well, first of all, don't leave a job until you find another one. Secondly, we're in a program of action and honesty and integrity. You turn in a 2 weeks notice. You don't just walk out. You don't want to burn bridges either.
And it's just about doing the right thing, and
Exactly, because you never know when you're going to run into those people in
hey,
public again.
Here's the funny part. My sponsor, I fished with him on a private lake in Spring Hill, Louisiana, okay? Guess who's a member there also? That guy I gave that letter to, and I see him pretty regular, and I just wave, hey, man, how you doing?
Yeah.
Just as friendly as we can be.
No.
But,
Doing the right thing because it's the right thing
yeah,
to do.
instead of getting my butt whooped up in Spring Hill in a parking lot, it's not a good option.
You roll that cart out.
Yeah.
You put it back up in the cart return, and I know you're an expert in the gym, Matt, but
I'm kind of known for my weightlifting.
right. So
pretty much.
Re-racking the weights is a big deal.
It is.
Oh yeah.
I am more impressed by somebody that will take those 7 plates that they just put on each side of the leg press machine and put them back than somebody that can do 9 on each side and leave them there for the next.
You're talking
girl.
to a man who would, in football, weightlifting in high school during the summer, I would lay on the bench press with a bar on my chest, and I could look down the hall where the coach's office were. And if one of them walked out, I would just push the bar up and go 12. You know, like I just skipped all of it.
So
you
that's
know,
how you got that physique.
that is how I got this physique,
Right.
and I would just
But
rack it.
how is I meant to ask you, how is the Netflix and cupcake eating competition
I'm
going?
working hard on that. I'm in
Okay.
training. That's another story for another day. But
Well, we have to
I'm gonna be a
practice
champion.
every day to get good.
to be a champion,
Right.
So-
And what kind have you buttercups
I can't.
or
I don't. This is an alcoholic thing too. But when my kids aren't home, and I finally sit down with the TV to myself, I always turn it on something that has to do with a serial killer. I was sitting there the other night, and I'm
That
like, why
might
do
be
I
the
keep
difference
watching
between
this crap?
recovery and sobriety.
Maybe it is. I'm like, why do I always flip on like
I
Jeffrey
don't.
Dahmer? Why can't I watch something besides this? But I don't know.
I was watching To Catch a Killer this afternoon. I was home alone.
Bingo.
What am I going to watch? Something happy? No.
Yeah, I
I've seen
never
that.
watched.
Okay, so I guess this is a girl thing. Emily in Paris.
Emily in Paris. I don't know that one.
I've seen the previews for that one. It wasn't one that sparked
You
my
lying dog.
interest.
You've seen every
And
season
then,
of it. Ben.
um,
Don't even try that.
Ben used to
Ben's
watch
like, I've
Alan
heard of
McBeal.
it.
He's not admitting it though.
You watch the Hallmark channel?
Sex in the
No,
City,
I
the
can't
new
stand
one.
Hallmark.
Oh,
It'll
you're
come.
Well, no,
sponsee.
I'll say this. I mean, I could probably do with some Hallmark, but it's Christmas movies. My grandma has burnt me out on Christmas
Well,
movies.
see, that's funny that you bring that up because one of Travis's sponsees, like that is his jam.
When the agenda comes out for Hallmark Christmas, shout out to Terry P. When the agenda comes out, he's like he blocks off everything. He's just like, this is what I'm doing.
See, one of my
Christmas
main
movies?
issues with
Really?
It's always the same
Hallmark
plot.
Christmas movies is Christmas is over and it's January and we're still watching Christmas.
Well,
They
it's
don't got nothing
Christmas
going
in
on over
January.
there.
Yeah, you're in month 1. You got 12 months to watch them.
No,
It's so stereotypical. Like so much to the point that Terry and I were going to sit down and write a Hallmark movie, and we have like half of it like plotted out too.
You know what's odd is me and Travis in what we do for a living, the thought of Christmas does not bring forth those
Joy.
those ideas that most of y'all think of, like, snow, trees, time with family.
no, it means 12-hour days when I'm putting bikes together in the back of Walmart because I work.
Yeah. I usually don't mention the name of the company I work for, but that's okay, man.
I didn't work for Walmart.
It's on this program.
I worked for Assemblers Incorporated.
Yeah.
Through
And
a
you're
company
right,
called-
though. You could put bikes together from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, and it's still not going to be enough.
No.
Yeah, our Christmas starts well before
Mm-hmm.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that was a good time. That's when we made most of our money and we kept the lights on for more than just a month at a time.
Oh, that's life goals right there, man.
Yeah.
We had electricity all year this year, dude.
Well, we didn't. None of us sitting at this table had electricity all
that's
year.
true. That's true.
That's why we've had a lull in
Yeah.
full podcasting because we were the city was without power for like 2 weeks.
Hey, here's
Talk about powerless.
Here's a good one on Ben. We get our power knocked out. Ben's going home. We have 2 ice machines, okay? We have no power at our job. We're like, well, the guys can get ice in the morning. Some alcoholic goes to the Koala Club and gets that gigantic ice chest, that blue one, stops by the shop that evening when the power went out, filled that thing up. We roll in the next morning, there's no ice. The owner goes, where's the ice? Ben's like, oh, I took some home. He goes, you took it all? It was 2 ice machines, Guys were dropping like 1 cube of ice in a 25-gallon water cooler.
In my defense, work had a generator, generator, not generator.
Well, they did have a generator,
and
yes.
I did not. So I needed to keep myself cool and my food frozen. So We don't
Man,
have
that-
food at work, so
That made me mad. I had to throw out a bunch of food.
You know, in New Orleans, they'd come in and throw your food out for you.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You come home one day and everything you had in the fridge gone. It's yeah, yeah. I mean, not if you lived in a house. So Travis, that obviously ain't gonna happen to you. But in an apartment complex that I lived in, whenever we had that hurricane come through, and electricity was out for over a week or whatever it was.
They don't want to ruin the fridges. and
After
stuff.
about 4 days, they come in and they take it all out and throw it away.
Oh, it ain't.
There ain't nothing left in there.
Hey, when you start telling that story, why do they go door to door?
Yeah, just bust
Nobody's
in
home.
your
Let's
house.
go in.
Huh?
Probably.
that makes sense though. As a
Yeah.
company,
Yeah, I mean, it's,
don't want to ruin fridges. Don't want to ruin.
you know, so, you know, we've got about 10 minutes left, and we've talked about various topics tonight, just kind of went around the table and just talked to each other and all this other stuff. But, you know, when we were talking about the original topic of recovery and sobriety, what's the difference? And, you know, I think you can hear recovery in these conversations that we have. Just going around the table.
Yeah.
We can talk about normal stuff that normal people talk about, you know, and there may be that one person sitting out there, you know, that hears this and thinks, man, I wish I could just have a normal conversation with someone. Because I know there was a time where I couldn't talk about anything other than what was so bad in my life and all my woes. Like that helps anything. It doesn't do anything at all other than make me feel good about talking about my shit, you know, but there might be that one person out there who says, you know what, those guys sit around that table. Ben's got a year. Matt's got 5 years. Travis has 27 years. Jennifer's got 6 years. I mean, all of these, you know, there's a broad spectrum of recovery in here. So, I mean, you got a broad spectrum, and you can tell the difference, you know, and, you know, I think it probably would have been pretty nice to have a brand new one in here, you know, just someone who hasn't really started the steps, or, you know, because there's going to be that, I'm going to get it, even if they're telling themselves at that point, I'm not going to get it. You know, there was no hope of this for me when I got here, man. I just want to stop drinking. I damn sure didn't want to do a podcast on recovery, right?
Right.
I damn sure didn't want
Man,
to.
like 5 years ago, if you'd have told me, hey, man, you're going to be like have a bunch of friends and not ever drink at all, and you're going to have a good time and probably have the best time you ever had, and you're going to be doing a podcast or whatever, and I'd have been like, somebody else needs to go to rehab, whoever's telling me this, because they're on drugs, you know?
Yep.
But here we are, so.
Yep. So I think that for me anyway, it took repetition. It took doing the same thing every day over and over again. You know, we talk about the 5 or 7 things, whatever they are, but I don't know if we ever actually say what they are, you know. And a lot of times that may raise the curiosity of a newcomer in the room. What are these 5 things you're talking about? You know, well, don't drink. That's a pretty good one. You know, pray, probably number 2 on my list anyway. It's actually became number 1, but in the beginning, pray would be number 2. Go to a meeting, you know, talk to another alcoholic, and read some literature about recovery, whatever it may be. Big book, 12 and 12, pass it on, any literature about recovery. And there's no time limit. And you actually, if you go to a meeting, you do all 5 of those things in a meeting. You're going to do all 5 of those if you actually go to a meeting every single day, which I thought was impossible whenever I first got there. But I just did those 5 things every day, and it became a way of life. And as I was doing them, my life got a little bit easier. And then as life got a little bit easier, I started doing them more and building on that. But I don't think, for me anyway, I don't think that recovery actually started 100. I wouldn't even say 100 now, but pumped up there until I started working the 12th step with another alcoholic. And, you know, not actually them working the 12th step, but me working my 12th step. Because if I'm going to sit here and say I work the steps, but I don't work with another alcoholic, right? I'm not working the steps. I'm you know, I might could do the first 11 really good, but I'm not doing 12 at all. And I think for me, the recovery life began, and all those promises that we read about them tonight, so the reason I'm bringing them up. You know, a lot of that stuff comes to mind as I'm sitting there reading with another alcoholic, or we're discussing what's going on in their life, you know, and all of a sudden, whatever goes on in mine, I can't keep up with both at the same time, you know, and I have recovery. This person may not, or may, you know, we may be going back through, but I can sit there and listen and try to help. and just talk through some situations. And as I'm doing that, this whatever's going on in my mind just isn't working at that point. So even if I get that 1 hour, because I usually don't work with my guys but over an hour, right an hour, unless we're working a fifth step. But that relief that comes in, you know, is a sign of comprehending the word serenity. You know, I comprehend it at that moment. By the way, in the promises, we will comprehend the word serenity. You know, I can comprehend the word billionaire. I can. Yeah. Doesn't mean I'm going to be a billionaire. I comprehend it and know peace. And a lot of that recovery stuff came in whenever I started working with another alcoholic and maybe putting them before I put myself, even if it's just for an hour every few days, you know. And it caused me to have a recovery lifestyle instead of just kind of wandering from day to day. What am I going to do? You know, I'm going to go to a meeting and I'm going to do this, that, and then I'm going to go on about my merry way. And it just hasn't worked for me. It just has not. And I have my trials and low spots as anybody else, but that's when all those things come in handy, you know.
Well, it's a program of attraction, not promotion. And the 12th step, you actually are, when you practice the principles, all of the principles, which are the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and all of your affairs, it teaches you to be a sponsor.
Yeah, it does. It teaches you to be a sponsor, absolutely.
And you know, I'm gonna go with what Mike was saying there, and kind of add a little bit to what I said earlier about hearing the laughter in there with that birthday. We've sat in here and we started off with a subject on a podcast, and we've talked about Christmas movies, Ben watching female TV series that he won't admit to.
Absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Okay, well, you know, all kind of stuff, and we're not. This is not a boring way to live, you know. And like, you do become friends with people, and you care about what they're doing, and not every conversation is, you know, oh my God, I don't want to drink today. Most of them are not. It's just we do what we're doing right now, and that's what I enjoy. Just we go on a variety of stuff, you know. So
I don't think I've heard from anybody at this table in my 6 years of sobriety, or knowing the people sitting at this table. I haven't heard one of y'all say, "I want to drink today."
You know, that is a good thing to bring up. I mean, can any of y'all remember the last time you wanted to drink?
Yes.
I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a while, but yes, I remember.
I can't. I can't remember the last time. That's scary. Maybe I need to. No, I can't. I remember my last drunk very well.
Yeah.
But I can't remember the last time I wanted to drink. I guess when I got out of that rehab for the last time, I was so scared. I was scared to entertain the thought. I mean, I was scared. If I thought about it for more, like, there's a water bottle behind Matt's head here in my kitchen. And if I looked at that water bottle and thought that could be vodka, that was too long of a thought for me. I just could not think about it. I refused to think about it, you know. I was scared. I was scared to death. You know, I was scared of me.
So, you know, going back to this program, I'll tell you, when did we do the intergroup that you were at work, Mike? How long ago's that been?
It was like Founders Day, June 10th.
Yeah.
June 10th. All right. June 10th. I wake up that morning, totally throwed off. Just been stressed out of my gourd. I woke up that morning, first thing pops in my head. And I went, nope, we're not doing it. Not doing it. I could tell I was off. Got my stuff together, got up there, had something to do related to Alcoholics Anonymous already that day. I jammed on that all day. The first alcoholic I see, this guy sitting right here to the right of me. We walked out to the shed to unlock the shed. Remember what I told you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I said, man, today it sucked this morning, but we're rolling. Yeah. You just keep moving. And it went away at some point in that day. It went away, you know?
I think sometimes I get sponsees that, but they'll call me freaking out. They're like, I had a using dream or oh my gosh, like I got scared because I thought about drinking, and I'm like, you're not alone. We call that the strange mental blank spot.
Yeah.
The big book says, there will come a time the only thing that stands between us and that next drink
It's God.
is God.
Yep.
So what it tells me is it's going to happen.
Right.
We have those thoughts. We're alcoholics. That's the way we're wired. But if we're not doing the things we're supposed to be doing every day and investing in that relationship with our higher power, when that happens, we're drawing upon an empty well, right? So doing every day what I need to do to stay sober and investing in that relationship with my higher power. So when that happens, I have something to draw on.
Sure.
A daily reprieve based on the maintenance of my spiritual condition.
And you know what? This will tell you where I'm at. I don't have that very, very often, and that's why I can remember, because it just happened very rarely. But I was glad it happened.
Yeah.
Because it goes, you need to keep your butt in line.
I went to my
Just kind of wakes me up,
went to my sponsor one time in the early sobriety about a drunk dream. I woke up and had this drunk dream, and I go to him. I'm like, I'm not doing something right. He's like, I'm telling him the dream, and he's like, you know what that proves? I was like, no, what does it prove? He goes, you were asleep.
Ooh.
Yeah.
He was right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with him on that. Or you were at least in REM sleep. you were laying or sitting, I guess.
Yeah, I used to get so scared. I would have dreams that I was drinking, but I was still going to meetings, and I was lying about my
Same.
my
thing.
date.
I still have those.
And I would wake up feeling guilty as crap. Like I felt guilty just for dreaming it.
Well, it's like so embedded in your subconscious. You like when you wake up, you actually think.
You think it
I've
happened?
been drinking the whole time, and I've got all these years, and then you think I don't have all these years, and then you're like, what the hell am I thinking?
And the day of that deal that I was talking about, I didn't have a dream that night, but that's how I woke up feeling, if that makes any sense. It wasn't like I'm going to run to the liquor store, but it was like, I feel terrible. Like it was just so messed up. And then this guy right here, I was like, I'm going to find an alcoholic somewhere. And he pops his head out of the door that morning. I'm like, come here, Buster. So
I didn't want to drink, but I remember I was out of town for work, and I went to Outback by myself, and it was just easier. Place was packed. I was like, I'll just sit at the bar. And I
It's
didn't
like a story out of the big book.
Yeah, I didn't ask
whiskey
for
and milk.
I didn't ask for a sandwich or whiskey and milk, but I just remember grinding because I'm looking at these people that like they're sitting there drinking and they
With
can just do
impunity.
it like with impunity, and and so I remember I called my friend Maurice up, and I was bitching about it, and I'm like, it just pisses me off, and he goes, well, Jennifer, you don't even know if they were doing it with impunity. You don't know what happened when they left the bar. You don't know if they drank more or if they got in a wreck or, got in a huge fight with their significant other. You just saw that piece of it, but you can drink.
yeah.
And I knew that, but I was just, it's not fair sometimes.
Sometimes. But we're all sober today, have been for a
I'm
while.
tickled with it
Yeah.
today, man. I'm loving it.
Travis, Ben, appreciate you guys dropping by today. Jen, glad to have you back. I think our next episode, we're going to touch just a little bit on the inventory process. I'm not going to dive off completely into step 4, but we're going to just talk about the inventory process and where that is, what our experience with the inventory process, hell, what it even means, does it have to be complicated, but we'll discuss that next time. I appreciate all the listeners out there. Would love to hear from you on the voicemail line or at the email. And from Bossier City, this is Mike signing off.